No, I am not interested in golden showers, but it does look like the entire singlet was soaked in a bucket of urine or something. Hi and welcome back to the channel. I'm Steven from X Kurogane Studio, today with a price figure review, and I believe this is my first in more than a year that I am reviewing a price figure. My last one was also a Taito. I believe it was the T-Most series Marin Kitagawa, which was a very exceptional price figure, which was why I reviewed it in the first place. But this one is a more ordinary price figure, so you can expect typical price figure level quality. And normally, I'm quite reluctant to review price figures because I am a snob who looks down on figures like this. Well, not really. It is because you guys won't watch the video, right? If you paid attention to big channels, 50, 100,000 followers, and those are figure channels, they also don't review price figures that often. Yeah, nobody watches them. That's the sad part because who would want to waste 10 or 50 minutes of their life on a review of a $15 product? Because if you ended up with a bad price figure, you take the L, you take the loss, you toss it away or sell it to someone else and you buy something else, right? It is not a big loss. Unlike a $200 scale figure, which you may want to check out a proper review first before buying it so that you don't end up with trash, right? So it is a lower risk purchase, which is why less people would watch the review. But since I purchased the one already, might as well make content out of her. So what you are looking at on my desk over here, this is Reisalin Stout from Atelier Ryza. This is under Taito's Coreful series of price figures. A more ordinary line of price figures, not something exceptional in quality. So they tend to fall between the 1500 to 2500 Japanese yen price range. Of course, if you are really good with crane toy machines, you could get it in one single try. Maybe you could get one in just a few hundred yen. So what kind of flaws can we find on this figure? We shall find out soon. But before that, the height of the figure. If you look at myfigurecollection.net's figure database, she was mentioned as being 18 centimeters, and that was something I overlooked initially when I bought this figure. And yes, I felt a bit underwhelmed, a bit disappointed by her size. I wish that she is bigger, but after measuring this figure myself, if I do not include the base, only from the bottom of her left feet to the top of her head over here, not including this ribbon over here, she's closer to 19 centimeters, but that is also not far off the height of a pop-up rate, which is around 16 to 17 centimeters. But if you include the base into the dimensions of the figure and all the way up to her right index finger over here, then her overall height would be closer to 21 centimeters. So back in my unboxing video roughly a week ago, I think, I said that this feels like a 1/8 scale, but I was way off. This is smaller than that. This is maybe 1/9. Yeah. Pop-up rates are close to 1/10. This is a bit bigger than that, so I would say this is roughly 1/9 scale. Meanwhile, this is what the box looks like, so nothing too unique over here. Just a typical paper box. And does not protect the figure that much, but this figure is not really that fragile. Doesn't seem like something that will break easily unless you're not careful with the ribbons on top of her head over here. Meanwhile, as for the assembly, you get two plastic foot pegs where you plug it into the base, and the stability of this figure for something standing on one single leg is actually very good. Excellent even. When I shake the figure, she does not really wobble that much. So the stability score I would give this figure is a solid 9 out of 10. Especially for something standing on one single leg over here. Moving on to the sculpt of the figure, well, this is as average as it gets for a price figure. At least Taito never screws up the face of an anime figure. And the face is an easy 9 out of 10. And do remember that I am scoring this figure based on what I expect out of a price figure. So a 9 out of 10 for a price figure is not the same thing as a 9 out of 10 for a premium scale figure, right? If this was a premium scale figure, this would be like a 5 out of 10 or 6 out of 10 for the face, yeah. So at least the face is good over here, but I'm not sure if I'm happy with the hair. or rather the sculpt of the overall figure, the body and everywhere else, there is a lack of refinement, but at the same time, I am not that surprised since this is a price figure and it does not fall under Taito's more premium AMP Plus or the most series. You know, those price figures can cost 4 or 5,000 yen nowadays, which I find it to be absurd because I would never pay 5,000 yen for a price figure. I'm a cheapskate after all. So the overall sculpt of this figure, I can give it a solid 6 out of 10, just above average, because there really isn't much wrong with the sculpt. The detail level is about what you would expect for a price figure, just that it is lacking refinement, where you can see some mold lines on the side of her outfit. But if you think of the mold lines as stitching lines for her singlet, then I think it still looks okay, right? This is already better than average when it comes to sculpting, because the mold lines on her leg and on her arms at the side, they are barely visible. So I really like that. If you really pay attention and shine the figure under a direct light source, you might see a slight hint of the mold line along the center of her thighs. It is barely there. If you pay attention, you might see it. But on the back of the figure, on these brown color leather boots, I think, or stockings, then the mold lines over here are a lot more obvious. It feels really rough even. So a 6 out of 10 for the sculpting. Moving on to the paintwork, there are no major quality control issues. I don't see any major paint bleeding, any big scratches or paint transfer. But if I would look even closer at this figure, then yes, there is this part where I was pretty certain is guaranteed to have paint bleeding, and that would be the bracelets on her left arm over here. Yep, it is right there, very obvious. All of the gold color paints are bleeding into her wrist, which is to be expected because how can you expect something so cheaply made to have precise painting on a part that is so tiny? So I can kind of understand that, which is why I'm a bit more forgiving with what I'm seeing over here. However, what is not so forgiving is the huge amount of glue smudge, as I call it, or glue leakage at the back of the figure over here. If you shine her back under a light source, then you can see this really bright, shiny spot over there that is a bit like what you'll see if you accidentally spill super glue on any figure or any surface for the matter. Once the glue hardens and sets, then it leaves behind this shiny look, right? Excess glue. This is most likely excess adhesive that they spilled on the figure accidentally, and whether they noticed it or not later does not matter because it is a price figure. Now their quality control standards are a lot lower. And one more small complaint, or rather observation I have, is that the overall paint finish of this figure is rather rough, lacking in refinement. You know, I'm comparing this price figure to another price figure also made by Taito, which is their AMP Plus or the Most series. This is way inferior. So I'm giving you guys a few examples over here. On her brown hair, if you look really closely, yes, it is like they were using translucent material for the hair and then they paint it partially so that it looks like there is some shading, but it isn't. And the paint particles, or rather the kind of airbrush they were using to paint the figure, you know, they were not calibrated properly. So you see a lot of big paint droplets all over the surface. So it looks really rough over there. And also, if you look at the surface of her singlet and everywhere else around the figure, you look very closely, even use a magnifying glass, then you start noticing that the surface finish is rather rough in general, no matter where you look. So this is price figure level quality. And of course, there are no clear coatings to protect the surface of the paint. Shading is also lacking. It is there, but barely there. And one thing I find really amusing about the choice of color they used for Reisalin Stout's singlets over here. No, I am not interested in golden showers, but it does look like the entire singlet was soaked in a bucket of urine or something. It is just what I thought of when the first time I saw the color of the singlet, which isn't like that on the scale figures, such as the ones made by Alta. Anyways, it still looks good from a distance, and don't overthink things like I do over here. So the paintwork overall, I can give it a 5 out of 10. Yeah, just average. No major QC issues other than the bracelet on the wrist, but at the same time, the finishing isn't great. And lastly, the base over here, yep, does not look nice at all. Brown plastic. It is what it is. It is a price figure. 5 out of 10 for the base as well. No comment. So, arriving at the conclusion of today's figure review, should you get this Reisalin Stout figure over here? If you're on a budget or you are just a high school student with very limited budget, I would still say it is a yes, because the most important part of this figure, two of them. Number one is the face, and number two is the thighs, the sculpting of the thighs. Taito did get these two parts right. So this figure over here, it still represents the character Reisalin Stout very nicely. If you are not a very picky figure collector, or you are not a very seasoned or experienced figure collector, then maybe your standards are not as high as mine. So I still see this as a viable option for people on the budget, and the only problem I have with it is the size of the figure. I wish that it is bigger, like at least 1/8, if not 1/7 scale big, because Taito has price figures that are just as big, for you as well. They are by Cute Bunnies. So to me, this feels like a missed opportunity. I feel like Taito should have made this Ryza figure under their Tmos lineup. Make it bigger, make it slightly more expensive, but better. This could have been under their Tmos line, but somehow she did not make it into their product line, and I'm not sure how price figure brands make their decisions on which figure, which anime or game character ends up in which product line. So I hope that this figure review over here is helpful and informative. If it is, please to give this video a like and subscribe to this channel for more anime figure content every week. I will be dropping another figure review on Friday, hopefully. I need to get my backlogs done. So until then, thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you guys soon. Goodbye.